I'll ask you to bear with us a minute. We're still waiting we're kind of shorthanded tonight, but we need 4 members to start for a quorum, so we're waiting for our 4th member to show up.
So there's these people here for the mountain green.
Gonna be done. My term's done. When is my term done? For this year? Oh, is it done?
It's done about now. They're going to be reorganizing it, so.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. It's been quite a few years.
Good. Way too long. Huh?
No, not at all.
Well, you're supposed to. I've had people tell me you're not supposed to be there that long, so you're very right.
That's what they say.
Jerry Ross told me that.
Oh, is that right?
So should I still keep coming here then, or should I back off?
Please.
Until you're notified.
She says they're supposed to come up with a decision on their next meeting.
As far as what?
What to do with the quorum.
How to organize it.
They're gonna do 5.
Planning commission.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it is seven.
We can look up. Is there public recordings on what they discussed or in the work sessions?
Here comes your guy. Yep. We'll take it. It is.
We're waiting for this because we have.
I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Morgan County Planning Commission, Thursday, March 14th, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone out. It's nice to have a full house. I've asked Member Wilson to give an opening prayer, and after that, if you'll please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we bow before you. We're grateful once again to meet as members of the Planning Commission in conjunction with the members of Morgan community. We're grateful for their willingness to come here and interact with us and to give us opinions on what they would like. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to live here, for all of the wonderful people that live here. We're grateful for the government we have. Pray for a blessing upon the leaders of it and for the people of this community. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Member Little and a second by Member Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Declaration of any conflicts of interest with any items on the agenda. Commissioner. Okay, seeing none, we move on. Now it's a public comment time. Those that can look at the agenda. Items 6, 7, 8, 9 are what are called administrative. They do not have a public hearing. So if you wish to speak on one of those agenda items, now will be your time. If you're here to speak about the code change from the Agribusiness Agricultural Industry Code Text Amendment or the Mountain Green Peterson area plans, we request that you wait until the specific time for those for your public comment. If that's clear. So now for public comments. So if anyone has any comments, and you can also make comments on something that's not on the agenda. Now is the time to do it. You come up to the lectern. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6. This is the Spenlove Plumbing Commercial Flex Space Site Plan.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Application 23.092 is an administrative item for a site plan. The title of the project being Spenlove Plumbing Commercial Flex Space Site Plan. The applicant is Chris Spenlove, who is in the audience tonight, Madam Chair. The address for this property is 5653 West Canyon View Circle, and is also identified by the parcel and serial number in your meeting packet tonight. The acreage for the property is 1.68 acres. The general plan future land use map has the designation for this area as commercial, specifically vehicle-oriented commercial. The zoning is indicated incorrectly in the staff report and meeting packet, Madam Chair. It is not highway commercial. It is light manufacturing, LM abbreviation. And so the request is for approval of the site plan for tonight that includes 2 buildings, which will be condominiumized during the subdivision process. And staff has completed the review for this item. There were multiple revisions and resubmittals from the applicant. They were really great to implement the changes requested by staff and the reviewers around Morgan County. Specifically with the landscape plan, it does show over 15% for the land use calculation required by code, and it shows over that. The lighting plan for photometrics meets the intent of the county's dark sky ordinance. And the parking spaces, as shown in the site plan, Madam Chair, are acceptable. Staff therefore recommends approval of this item tonight, rather that the Commission forward a recommendation of approval for the to the County Commission. And I can answer any questions you may have. Madam Chair, thank you.
Any questions for staff? Staff?
Thank you.
Any members that would have any questions for the applicant?
I guess I have one question for the applicant.
The applicant? You
Sure,
can stand up
would
to the lectern, yeah. State your name for the record, please.
Chris Spenlove.
Great, thanks, Chris. We just need to know, have an idea about the landscaping, about how soon, or what's your plans during the phasing process to have that done?
To have it completed.
Yeah,
Hoping that between this process and building permit that we start this summer. That being said, having the building done by fall, which we would be pushing getting landscaping done, which is a good question. It's a question for me as well, is can we occupy the building without having landscape done, putting landscaping off till next spring.
Landscaping is typically inspected according to the site plan at time that you go for final building inspection. So it'll have to be in prior to C of O. I don't have anything in the code that would allow for a temporary occupancy prior to the landscaping being installed, because the C of O is really the last time the county has any power to make sure something gets done correctly. So the landscaping will need to be in prior to receiving your C of O.
Sounds like I'm landscaping in September.
Good answer.
And that would be complete landscape. Okay. The entire lot.
Everything according to the site plan, and if you're phasing it, then the landscaping that is identified within phase 1 would be required at the time that that building is inspected and a C of O is issued. In the future, when you construct the second building as part of phase 2, the landscaping shown in phase 2 would be required at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Not ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I move we recommend approval of the County Commission for the Spenlove Plumbing Commercial Flex Space Plan, application number 23.092, allowing for the proposed commercial development located at 5653 West Canyon View Circle in Mountain Green, based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Wilson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second by Member Little. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And I'll be voting since there's only 4 of us. Item number 7, Scotsman Center Storage Unit Site Plan.
The Scotsman Center Storage Site Plan is application number 23.047. The applicant is Craig Widmeyer, and the property address is 5859 North Cottonwood Canyon Road. The area of the property is approximately 10 acres, a little bit larger than that, and the zoning is technical and professional campus. For storage units at this site, it requires a C1 conditional use permit, which the applicant has already applied for and received approval. The site is also divided, if you can bring up the site plan. South of the current proposed storage units is what I called Phase 1. The applicant talked about a Phase 1 and Phase 2. The old site plans that the southern portion of the property didn't talk about Phase 1 or Phase 2, though. The storage units that were approved for construction on the south side of this property are I believe, sheet metal. And it was allowed to go forward without landscaping and other types of reviews. I can't find anything other than the building permits that they were given and the site plan documents that they provided at that time. The storage units to the north are proposed to be exactly of the same material as those on the south, which is corrugated metal. Our code specifically prohibits corrugated metal, but because of the timing of the southern units, we are recommending approval of the site plan itself, but Planning Commission has control over the materials. If the applicant can prove that the metal on the buildings is of an architectural nature and design, then the metal can be approved. However, because it's sheet metal and corrugated metal, which are outright prohibited, I don't think the Planning Commission can approve the corrugated metal. However, because the section to the south already has corrugated metal, it's just kind of an odd situation. So the storage units to the south were approved and constructed between 2018 and 2019, and the commercial design standards went into effect in 2020. So, and now it's 2024, and we do have those commercial design standards. So if the applicant wants to kind of discuss with the Planning Commission the proposed materials, everything else with regard to the site plan meets our minimum code. The landscaping, they are providing additional landscaping to landscape Phase 1, which was not required at the time that they were approved prior to. This additional landscaping will help screen the current nonconformity. Their parking and their circulation all meets minimum code, and they submitted a photometrics that meets our night sky ordinance. So with that, I can answer any questions you may have, or if you have questions for the applicant.
Any questions for staff?
There are a couple questions. One so the landscaping for the first phase, that's not required. They're just doing it to make it look nicer.
That's true. It was not required at the time, and I don't know why. I can't really go back to that. I don't believe they were required to go through site plan review prior to me. My predecessor didn't follow that.
And just more out of curiosity, not that it matters, but on the because they should have been. It sounds like, if I understand, they should have been required, didn't get enforced, or otherwise wasn't there. Can the county go back and retroactively, because it should have been required? Can you? Not, they're doing it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I'm just more curious on as a general matter, can the county go back and enforce it retroactively?
I would say no. I would say that it is a non-conforming use, not a legal non-conforming, just non-conforming. And non-conformities are allowed to continue without abatement or enforcement on the county side. If they come forward at a future time and want to change what's on that southern portion, modify those buildings, then at that point we could look at enforcing the codes at that time. But they're not proposing it at that location, they're proposing it at the empty portion to the north.
And then just one other question. If I understand it with the corrugated metal, that wasn't part of the requirements at the time they built the phase one. Requirements have now changed, so they can't use the same material in phase two because those requirements are, as of 2020, are now required to not use that material.
That's correct. There are some metals that are allowed. It doesn't really define the type of metal, but it's the applicant's responsibility to define why their proposal is architecturally sound. That's part of our code. So,
Madam
I-
Chair, I had a question for you. Josh, I don't remember this. Can you refresh my memory why we don't like corrugated metal? What's the problem with it, or do you remember what? discussion?
I don't know what went into the discussion for commercial design standards. I think corrugated metal can be used in some situations, and it's durable. It stands up. From an aesthetic point of view, if it's all corrugated metal, I think it will detract. But I mean, it's like any other material. It can be used, and it can be used properly. These buildings are all corrugated metal, including the roof. And our current code strictly prohibits corrugated or sheet metal as an allowed material altogether. Now, if the planning commission thinks that corrugated metal should be allowed in certain situations, then you can direct staff to bring the text amendment forward with that. But right now, the situation with this, though, as far as I can tell, is they were allowed to do it on the south, and then now, going forward, they need approval for metal, but yeah, it's just kind of a strange situation.
I think how it happened is Town Center, we put design standards for the commercial buildings, and then later we realized maybe we want that same design standards on all commercial buildings. And so then we just extended it.
Now, you probably, I know you know a lot more than I do, but is there percentages on those buildings as to what percent has to be what?
No.
Do you remember that?
On the metal, it doesn't give a certain percent. It just talks that it needs to be of high grade and provides architectural quality to the building. So it's usually was meant to be as an accent. Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward, please? You can state your name for the record, please.
Sure. Craig Widmeyer, part of the Scotsman Center partnership. And I think that, you know, when we built our first phase, or when we acquired the property, the large building to the west, which was formerly Ryan Tripp Processing Facility, you know, architecturally was a standing seam metal building, you know, with green trim, kind of a taupe color. At the time when we did the first phase, we were in a different type of zoning. It got changed after we built our first phase of storage units, where we got put into, I think, the current zoning that it is now. So when we built the first phase of storage units, you know, we were compliant. We were matching up to that existing building in its architectural finishes. And, you know, some of the things that if you're familiar with the property, there's an incredibly long private drive that goes back to the main big structure. And so adding in the picket fence, adding in the tree lines along the boulevard to, you know, enhance the property and trying to make it feel as a part of a kind of an overall 10-acre parcel. So our objective in this second phase is to match those same type of architectural look. You know, the buildings are, you know, a three-tone. They got green trim, kind of a taupe main building color, and then the doors are a darker, kind of a taupe color to them. And as mentioned, one of the things, you know, that was brought up in the concern of our application was, you know, the landscaping and being able to maybe enhance that and to meet the requirements. Do you have the landscape plan by chance? When you look at it, it's incredibly heavily landscaped, you know, to meet the requirements. And if you look at the other, you know, properties in that area, the landscaping is significantly less of what's being required. But you have the one that shows the. So out along the old North Cottonwood Canyon Road, we've included landscaping in front of the existing storage units and carrying that all the way through along the new phase as well, and then enhancing it up the entry drive even more, just to get the requirements of the 85% coverage of the plan. So you can see on the landscaping plan here, out on the old Cottonwood Canyon Road, coming back in and adding in that landscaping along, you know, those first phase of storage units. So architecturally, you know, we're trying to keep it consistent and look the same. The building that's been there for 20, 30 years has that same look and feel. Our first phase of storage units kind of followed suit. And so I guess what we're petitioning is that this second phase, which is basically a mirror of that first phase, be allowed to maintain those cycle materials, and with that additional landscape coverage that we've done to meet the requirements. Is there any other questions that I can ask or answer?
Well, actually, I do have a question for you, Craig. What other materials have you got scheduled if you can't use corrugated steel? And what are your other options? I'm just curious. This is for my own personal.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be, you know, if there was some, like a stone wainscot or something like that, you know, on part of the buildings. The majority of the project isn't out on a public road. You know, we only have basically the back side of that one row of storage units that's, you know, facing out onto a public road. The rest of it is internal in that long private drive. So I think we would probably just work with staff or planning commission if required to see what some architectural material would be. But objectively, you know, we're trying to carry through the same thing that we started with.
Any more questions?
If I recall, on the Cottonwood Canyon Road, behind your units are on that south side. That one that's on the road, is that the back side of that? Is that the corrugated metal, or is there a CMU wall there?
The storage units to the south of us, that's not our property, has a CMU wall. That's the back side of theirs.
Okay.
Ours is the corrugated metal, right at the end of the airport strip.
So we're in a situation where our code is saying it's prohibited. And since this is an administrative item, we always say check the box. We can't check this box to approve it because it doesn't meet our code for materials. It says they are prohibited, not maybe. So, our attorney have something to say on that?
I can. So I think there's a few options, a couple options maybe to consider. One would be if there's discussion that our code maybe is too restrictive, then a code amendment could be put forth so that we can check all the boxes. That would take some time because it would have to be drafted. Well, the Planning Commission would have to direct staff to draft a code amendment. Staff would bring it back after noticing it for a public hearing to a Planning Commission meeting, and then it would have to be approved by the County Commission, so that would take a little time to go through that process. And then I think the other option would be you could approve what you can approve and then just add in a condition that the materials have to be something that's permitted under our code. And perhaps the applicant would like to speak to what they would prefer, unless the planning commission has strong feelings one way or another.
Shad, you have something to say? If you state your name first for the record.
You bet. Shad Guffey. I'm one of Craig's partners in the project. In the staff report, there's a note here that the planning commission may approve metal as an exterior building material on a case-by-case basis if an applicant can show that the type of metal is of a high grade and provides architectural quality to a building. We'd like that opportunity. The prohibition is for standing seam. We're not proposing standing seam, we're proposing corrugated. Just wanted to bring that to light.
And there's corrugated on the main structure, as well.
The large structure.
The large structure, correct.
Yes, yeah, it's entirely corrugated.
I think Josh could help clarify that.
Yeah.
Standing seam through the construction, corrugated metal, the way they're put together, standing seam falls in line with that, which is why I was looking at that, and I don't think it checks the box. If they want to continue it, and I can do some additional research into corrugated metal versus standing seam, I'm willing to do that and bring it back to have a further discussion. But my understanding at this point right now is that corrugated metal falls in line with standing seam metal.
You have an option?
They're visually different. We could bring samples. If that's what the code was contemplating. Standing seam is visually different than corrugated.
I think that's a great idea if they want to bring it back. If you want to continue it to our next meeting, that would be, does that give you enough time? Okay.
You're okay with a postponement for a couple weeks?
Well, if you're not able to allow us the opportunity to approve metal on a case by case, if we can show that it's of a high grade.
You could make a recommendation for approval, pending the applicant prove prior to the county commission meeting that they show that the standing seam and corrugated metal are different. Or if you want to see it again, just continue it to your next meeting.
You're for continuing it? Preference?
Personally, that's fine with me. I still think that I tend to agree with the definition that corrugated and standing seam look the same to me. What's the difference in it, Chad?
Standing seam has a real sharp. Standing seam has a real sharp. What you call it? Standing seam. It's a
Does it still
standing
have?
seam.
It still has the molding though, right? Where the ridges, it's flat.
Well, corrugated is, has some waves
Right.
in it, and then a little hump, and then waves. Where standing seam is flush, sharp, kind of like an EKG
And
graph.
in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, I would probably ask them to come back and show us,
Okay.
and then I would also be tempted to. I guess we'd have to have a definition of what's high quality metal and what isn't. So
And
I'd be curious to hear
Staff could
that.
do the research on that. Can't guarantee you'll get the answer you want, but I think we're fine with postponing it till our next meeting.
And I've just asked, council to kind of, or planning commission to, when we bought the property, it had the existing 35,000 square foot building on it. And at the zoning, when we built the first phase of storage units, we were in compliance to follow the same type of architectural material. And when master planning was changed and we got put into this different kind of zoning, again, we're looking at a 10-acre parcel that has 2 of the 3 big components already done. And aesthetically, you know, kind of look a little weird to have the next phase not match what's already been there. And one of the buildings, you know, it's been there for 20 plus years. But kind of, we're getting a little bit hamstrung just in the sense that the master plan has only changed while we had ownership. And kind of have something in the community, it's kind of weird looking that why do these look different than that? You know, it's part of a larger 10-acre parcel. So it's kind of a, you know, I guess the interpretation of what is allowed, you know, that approved on a case-by-case basis. To me, this is a very strong case of a case-by-case because of what's happened, what was allowed, and what has changed. You know, it's kind of changing what was going to be held to, I guess.
You had a zone change and a code change.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had both.
But we're happy to provide the screening, including trees and the landscape, including phase 1. You know, if we don't like the look of corrugated, we're screening it anyway to the public.
Sounds like a really great argument for either a code amendment or, I think the hard part is codes change, and anything that is submitted prior to a code change is grandfathered in under whatever, you know, if it's a complete application and there's vesting rights. The difficulty with the case-by-case basis, unless there's something specific in our code that allows for it, where in this case, the current zoning administrator's interpretation is that it's prohibited, then that's where we can't ignore the code, because then we're not treating everyone the same, if that makes sense. And so I think what you're presenting is a good argument to maybe amend the code if that's not what was intended, or it was applied too broadly back when it came through. I know Josh wasn't here when that happened, I wasn't here when that happened, and so we don't know all the details of why and what the discussion was. But I think, you know, from what you've shared, I think it's a good argument for a code amendment process to be initiated. But if you'd rather try to go the route of showing that the zoning administrator may change their mind, because that under our code, Josh interprets it, that's who makes that decision, and he said he's open to changing his mind if he's presented new information. So I think you have multiple options here.
Okay. So you're okay with postponing then, your preference?
I think we need some signals.
Okay.
Some area that gives better visuals for you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'm ready for a motion to postpone Scotsman Center Storage Unit Site Plan till our next meeting.
Madam Chair, I move we recommend postponement for the Scotsman Center Storage Unit sites for 2 weeks. Next Planning Zoning Commission.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Wilson, a second.
Second.
A second by Member Miller. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item is the plat amendment, Paul to Rock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Paul DeRock plat amendment is application number 23.075. The applicant being John Rock and Mr. Pollard in the audience tonight. And then the project location being for 2 separate lots, and for clarification from 2 separate subdivisions. Those addresses being 5920 North Paul Drive and 5911 North Creekside Drive. The zoning being applicable to both lots is R120, which is 20,000 square foot lots. The general plan designation is village low-density residential for this area, and the combined acreage of the two lots being affected by plat amendments are 1.24 acres. The staff report and meeting packet carry the parcel and serial numbers for clarification. And also to clarify, with this being a lot line adjustment, no acreage being swapped makes either lot non-conforming. Both still meet that 20,000 square foot requirement for the R120 zone. Otherwise, this being a simple lot line adjustment. Madam Chair, I can answer any questions you have, and I yield my time. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for staff?
I'm confused. We're taking conforming lots and making them non-conforming? Or is it-
Still conforming either side of the
Okay,
decision.
sorry, I thought you said non-conforming. So.
There will not be a non-conformity created by this plat amendment. Is
Thank
what
you.
I should have said.
Thank you.
Glad to clarify that.
The only condition I want to add is that 2 Mylars, one for each subdivision, need to be recorded. Because you have the Mountain Green subdivision, and then you have the Highlands West subdivision. So each Mylar, each subdivision is having a boundary change. So we'll need 2 Mylars. Be the only condition that I can think of.
It's agreeable, Madam Chair.
Sorry, one other question. It looks like the access doesn't change. One already has a driveway, and then the other one comes off the other street.
Correct. 2 separate county rights of way.
Any more questions for staff? Does anyone have a question for the applicant?
I don't have any for him, but I do have a question for you when you're done.
Okay, well, yeah, no more questions for staff or applicant. Yeah, what,
I just wanted to make sure I had right what you were saying, where there were 2 different subdivisions, the wording.
well, just that 2 Mylars, one for each subdivision, be recorded. So if there's no more discussion, ready for a motion.
You want me to give it a shot? Okay. Madam Chairman, I move we recommend approval of County Commission for the Pole to Rock plat amendment to allow a lot line adjustment, application number 23075, located at 5920 North Paul Drive, 5911 North Creekside Drive in Mountain Green, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated March 14th, 2024, with the following condition: that 2 Mylar plans be made reflecting the changes in the lot lines, one for each subdivision.
Be recorded. Okay, do I have a sec, I have a motion by Member Wilson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Member Little. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the Mountain Brook Estates plat amendment.
Madam Chair, the Mountain Brook Estates number 1 plat amendment is application 24.007. The applicant being Nathan Breinholt, who is in the audience tonight. The location of the project being 4033 West Mountain Brook Way in the Mountain Green area, with the current zoning as R120. The general plan designation reflecting that at village low density residential, with the acreage of the lot at the aforementioned address being 0.36 acres. Madam Chair, effectively what's happening is there is HOA property to the south and west of the applicant's of the subject property. And you'll notice two narrow strips of land on the west and north end of the HOA property, and also going up on the east side of I believe that's North Cottonwood Canyon right-of-way. And so that disrupts frontage from Cottonwood Canyon Road with that HOA property going right in between, or being divisive between the applicant's property and the right-of-way. So the plat amendment tonight would effectively remove that narrow strip of land, and then the intent of the applicant would be to purchase that property and have it be part of the acreage for their own lot. Again, in this plat amendment, the acreage being removed from the HOA property isn't significant enough to affect the HOA, the amount of acreage that the HOA needs to provide for that neighborhood, for that subdivision. And then it's just being added to the subject property. But I can answer any questions you have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Any questions on this plat amendment for staff?
I don't know why, if it wasn't part of the minimum acreage, why they have what looks to be weird shaped or portions that are part of the HOA. Any ideas to why that was required?
Staff didn't find anything researching that or anything. Maybe the applicant could speak to that. May have some context.
When I looked at the development agreement,
Just a minute, you come up.
That's
Oh, it's
me.
Josh.
That's me.
Oh, Josh, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you was talking.
It's all good. Staff did research the total open space requirement for this and could find no specific required percentage. It's less than, the amount is not significant. Even if there was a percentage, it wouldn't affect the overall. Typically, subdivisions, they don't meet the exact, they go over. And so there is some wiggle room there. But again, when I reviewed the development agreement for this area, I couldn't find any specific open space requirement.
Maybe the applicant can come up and just state your name.
Nathan Breinholt.
Okay. Was this a landscaped area? Is that,
So the biggest problem was when we bought the lot, it was not developed like it was supposed to be per the Morgan County agreement with the HOA. So there was a lot of things that didn't get done because I think the developer actually went bankrupt. And so they let the subdivision continue without making the changes that were actually on the development agreement. There's a couple other things like a crosswalk that never got put in that should have been put in. So this piece was not developed. So when we bought the house, we just assumed it was our property and when you look at it on a regular without looking too close, it looks like it's an easement for utilities because it's about the same size. Until I went to talk about different things, they're like, no, you're not a corner lot. You're actually, there's a piece of HOA. And so we've talked to the HOA. We have no issue. The HOA is more than willing to give it up because they don't want to have to develop it. And like I said, we've put a fence on it. We've been watering it. We've got trees planted on it for 10 years. And so we just figured it's time to officially take it over so that we don't run into any other issues.
thank you. Any more discussion or questions? Ready for a motion?
Do you have any conditions? I didn't hear anyone
No,
raise any
no, I don't
conditions.
think.
Okay, I don't matter. You want to do it, Devin? You want me to do it?
I don't have the
Okay,
paper.
I'll do
so
it
read
then.
this. Go ahead.
All right. Madam Chair, I recommend we give a positive recommendation to the county commission for the revision of the Morgan. It's not it. Sorry. What page is it on?
I have it at 11.
Okay, here I am. I got it. Madam Chairman, I move we recommend approval to the county commission of plat amendment namely the Mountain Brook Estates Number 1 plat amendment to allow transfer of acreage from the HOA of the Mountain Brook Estates PRUD to the owner of Lot 9, application number 24.007, located at 4033 West, Mountain Brook Way in Mountain Green, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated March 14, 2024.
A motion by Member Wilson, have a second. A second by Member Miller. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item, discussion. This is another, be a public hearing. Decision, agribusiness and agricultural industry code text amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a legislative action. It's a request for approval of a text amendment to modify Morgan County Code section or subsection 155.008, which is definitions, and 155.082, use regulations, the table before you. The amendment would change the current prohibition in the use tables, in the use regulations table for RR1 to a requiring of a conditional use permit, and would fix an oversight as well contained in code. So currently, to clarify, agribusiness is not allowed in the RR1 zone. And I'll have you recall the February 8 meeting during the business and staff questions. We discussed a couple of businesses around the county that are agribusiness. They're by all means very popular in the community and overall good for the health and otherwise of the county. We wouldn't be able to approve them if an application for those businesses came to our office, and would require maybe current efforts for enforcement. We don't want that. So in this case, the Planning Commission did direct staff to bring this text amendment forward. And so again, it does two things. It'll add the C2, is it the C2 designation in the RR1 table, in the use table. And then also in the definitions, it'll clear a definition that is kind of conglomerate, and I'm looking for it. It's the agricultural industry, and then in parentheses says agricultural business. Staff recommends a strike through of agricultural business from that definition, because those two things, agricultural industry and agricultural business, are different and should be defined differently. And this would just make it a little bit easier for code to be a little bit more consistent. And I can answer any questions, and Josh and I can answer any questions you may have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Apparently no questions, thank you. I have a motion to go into public hearing. A motion by Member Wilson,
I'll second
and a second by Member Little. All in favor?
it. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing for the text amendment for agribusiness and agricultural industry. Does anyone have anything to say on this item? Seeing none, I ready for a motion to go out of public hearing. A motion by Member Miller and a second by Member Little. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're out of public hearing. And ready for a motion, unless there's any more discussion that's needed.
I guess I had one question. In the industrial, is there a minimum acreage, just where it's allowed in A20 and MU160? Is there a minimum acreage on those? Is there a definition for that in the industrial?
The zones have a minimum acreage. MU160 is 160 acres and A20 is 20 acres. There are some parcels that are non-conforming parcels, but are still allowed to follow any of the entitled uses just because they're non-conforming. So the minimum acreage for those zones sets the minimum acreage. However, there are non-conforming situations.
So the minimum acreage requires is the same for commercial buildings as well, or industrial buildings?
No, agriculture industry would be like a CAFO, or a process, like a meat processing
Slaughterhouse.
plant, slaughterhouse, things like that. Things that are like need an agriculture zone type thing, but should really be regulated and require county commission approval because of the negative impacts that they bring. So currently, agriculture industry, the definition links it to agriculture business or agribusiness. And agribusiness only requires a C2, and it's allowed in more zones. So staff's recommendation is to restrict it even further.
May provide one point of clarification I didn't mention in my presentation is that agricultural industry doesn't exist on the use table, as you can see. This is the current code. And so on the use table in the staff report, we're adding that, and then we're changing agribusiness to be C2. So completely adding a whole new row to the use table. I didn't make that clear.
Any other questions? Okay, ready for a motion then?
Do we need to add any conditions on that, or is it?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move forward with a positive recommendation to the County Commission for the revision of the Morgan County Code, Section 155.008, for a strike-through of the agricultural business from the definition of agricultural industry, and 155.082 to allow agribusiness in RR1 zone, and define zone regulations for agricultural industry based on the text listed in the exhibits A and B of the staff report dated March 14, 2024.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Little. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a second by Member Miller. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item is the public hearing for public input, Mountain Green and Peterson area plans.
The Mountain Green Peterson area plans were drafted, well, it's a single document, but it was drafted by a consultant that was hired by the county several years ago. I believe they were given approximately $120,000 to do that. I don't remember where the funding came from. It might have been from Wasatch Front Regional Council. A portion of that was used as an opportunity to survey the residents of Peterson and Mountain Green, and then the other portion was used to draft the text that is on the agenda tonight. The Mountain Green Peterson area plan is an area plan that is supplementary to the general plan, and garnering public comment on the final draft is one stage towards moving the general plan forward as well. So the other area plans will also go through this to get public comment about how it's drafted. If there's inconsistencies, things that need to be changed, the comments tonight will be greatly valued and help us finalize the area plan. But I don't believe there's going to be any discussion between the commission and the public. Staff is not ready to recommend one way or the other. This is just for public comment. Thanks.
So I'm ready for a motion to
Madam
go with the
Chair,
public hearing.
move that we go into public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Little to open public hearing. Second by Member Miller. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, going into public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this issue, if you could please come up to the lectern and state your name for the record and your comment. If you could try to keep it to about 3 minutes, would be nice. So you can start now.
Kent Wilkerson, Cascade Civil. I've been working with the Whittier family in the Peterson area. We appreciate the staffs and the consultants reach out to the individual property owners and actually have found them quite enjoyable. Overall, we feel the document's great. We did notice in our final review, we looked at it, and that's the comment that I have for you. It looks like staff has the comment here on the screen, and appreciate that. We did notice in final review one thing that we talked with the consultant about, but could use a small tweak, and that is in the Peterson village, if you will. We kind of talked about the Hines and the Bar W Lodge, or the Whittier Rec Center, whichever you want to call it, being kind of the bookends for the future village area. And we noticed that location on page 27 actually wound up being slightly outside the bubble. So we got bookends, but the one bookend got kind of cut out. That lodge, as probably almost all of you know, is very, very well known community feature, and I'd say generally loved, as far as I know, and I live in the Mountain Green area. Any rate, so on page 39 where the bubble is, I've starred where the lodge is and request that be included in the bubble. And then you flip to page 45 of the thing, is an actual parcel by parcel analysis of the Whittier property, and that flex zoning that's reflected in the prior page 39 is not reflecting that either. So it's really just extending those colors out just a little bit further. We do recognize one critical point on that, and that is that if you put that allowed that flex zoning to go to the extreme south end of the Whittier property up on the bench, that would put flex zoning against existing half-acre residential, and as a courtesy to them, we wanted to give a little bit of a buffer. So we're suggesting that half of that bench be held back from the flex zoning, so just as a guarantee to be sure. I know this is not a dialogue back and forth, but we're happy to work with staff and implement these. We just feel like it'll be a much cleaner for the future of the Peterson area plan as presented. Otherwise, appreciate the work of staff and y'all in this endeavor. Cool.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Blaine Murray. I'm thrilled to see that the county is working on this. It's an important part of making sure that we protect the life in the area that we're living in. It was done right. I guess it's not that we can't ask questions, so I'm just going to work off of an assumption that, well, I don't know how much public involvement and how actively we presented the plan to the Mountain Green area. As I've spoken with my neighbors and the residents, the development is the hot topic, right, as you could understand, in a growing area like this. So my request would be, and my suggestion would be, I think that we would end up with a much better and more supported plan if we, if you and the county commission would take a little bit more proactive approach in actively seeking the input, because we really don't have anything to respond to other than what's on the website, and not everybody has the opportunity, nor do they even know about the existence. I didn't find out about it until last night, and so I think that it would behoove you and the commission to maybe hold a meeting at the elementary school or somewhere where you would roll this out, where you would explain what your assumptions are, where you can talk about what your plans were and how it's in our Mountain Green area's interest to protect the lifestyle that we have all come to love. I'd be happy to help that out wherever I could, but I think that we would end up with a better product if we had more involvement of the communities that would be affected by it. Thank you very much.
Clark Waldron. I live in Peterson. Back in 2005, 2004, I was part of the master plan committee. I'm not sure who on that group that we were previously on is on the group that's participating in this. I have no idea. I don't know that many of us are, except for maybe the large landowners that were on the committee. It was always, I thought, part of the plan that when there were some changes to be made in the future, that they would get that group together, back together, and discuss future changes. But I guess this didn't work with that plan. I heard somebody comment that the community was surveyed about, what they want. I must have been not at home when that survey took place. I don't know of anybody else that saw the survey. As commented, I don't think that anybody really knows about this meeting. I found out about it yesterday, and I don't think, even if they do know about what the meeting is, I don't know that they know what impacts this would be to their community and their livelihood. To me, there's nothing further from the truth than when this says it wants to keep Peterson's rural feeling. This suggested document does none of that. I mean, the zoning is far too extreme from what the current Peterson master plan is at this time. One of the things in there, in one of the headlines, it says maintain the small town feeling. To me, if this is brought out like it is, there will be no small town feeling. It'll be a feeling like Park City. It's very densely populated. I saw somewhere 10 units per acre in some of the, I don't know if it was flex zoning. I didn't read it. I didn't read all 100 pages, but tried to capture some of the highlights. And just to say that they want to keep the small town feeling doesn't make it so. To me, the changes in this plan does not make it so. I think we need to keep the current master plan that we have and move more slowly. Bring in community members that are not, the bigger landowners. I have a say in our communities just the same as anybody else. And it states that we want to join Mountain Green and Peterson, and I'm not sure for what purpose. There are two dominant or prominent dividers to this, and it's the river and the freeway. And I see no reason to change what currently borders us. The new freeway exchange in Mountain Green that's been talked about, it's been talked about for 20 plus years. And since I've been a resident for over 30 years, and I don't think UDOT's going to build over the river to add Peterson in it just because someone in North Peterson wants it to. This plan even goes into how many homes we need to build to get us a Walmart or a Target or a grocery store. To me, this whole plan seems reversed to me. When it wants to hire a county employee to push the development to get to that ability to build out some of this stuff. To me, it just adds cost to the county and to the taxpayers, and it seems backwards to me. one of the statements in here says property taxes for Morgan County residents have been rising significantly. To me, they have been rising significantly even with the development of the county. What is driving our taxes up are increased needs of residents with development. Everyone here knows that when you feed the government beast, it never gets satisfied. It just gets hungrier. And that is what's happening here. I think impacts, one of the highlights, impacts to existing residents should be considered. I think if anybody knew the plan to put in a sewer system, I think you would have a packed house as far as what it would cost each resident to accomplish that. The current residents there have already built their infrastructure for their sewer. I don't plan on paying for it again. If the current Peterson master plan were followed, there would be no need for a sewer system. That's when we build out the was it R120 and all that out. It was all to accommodate septic tanks, and the big development doesn't work with that, and that's why I believe this is happening. And please don't ask the current residents to fund the development dreams of the large landowners.
I don't know if this should be directed to Garrett or the commission, but I'm
Can you
just,
please state your name for the record?
yeah, sorry, David Pitcher, Peterson resident. If it would be appropriate to request that the council make a motion that we go out of public hearing so that the staff can give at least a small presentation on exactly what this entails or what the county is trying to do, because I'm a developer. I've developed a lot of projects, and I've done general plan amendments and all those sort of things. And yeah, I only heard about this about an hour ago, so I haven't been able to review it, but I think a lot of people in the room are probably not really clear on exactly what the county is trying to do and not do, who's paying for it, when it happens, and that sort of thing. Is that possible? Or maybe I'm wrong, but I think most people would like to know exactly what this is trying to do.
So I think there's been a lot of feedback to have more meetings, and so I think that that's good feedback. And I don't know if staff is ready to do a presentation on this because it was noticed to just receive public comment. There's no
Okay.
motions being made today, but I think that the feedback that's received is being heard, that more meetings, more open, and I know it's not a back and forth, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily requesting back and forth. I just saw that there was 100 and some odd pages in this document, and so I'd like to have seen more. So then I'd just like to echo a lot of what has already been said, as I didn't know about this until just like at 6:45, and it was emailed to me. Some things that were texted was, hey, we're combining the water companies in the whole area. Debbie just shook her head. It looks like maybe that was just gossip. And so I don't want to comment on gossip and that sort of thing. I do have concerns. You know, for example, one of the trails is cutting right through the middle of my backyard. Or we're splitting my property in half, essentially. Is the county condemning that? And where I've been involved in the past, hey, these trails only go through as properties developed. I would like to know how the county's going to bring all of the north end of Morgan Valley Drive, everything north of Hines, into code compliance. Every single house there is out of code. Code says once you have over 30 homes, you have to have a secondary access. Everybody knows there's not a secondary access, and so now that Circle S Farms has been approved and Debbie's putting in her subdivision, that'll take the lot count well over 30. So I'd like to know when the county's putting that road in. I don't know why they're smirking, but I mean, this is what we've been running into. I guess we just need more information. Thanks.
Raylene Blocker, Mountain Green. First of all, thanks for having a plan, because having no plan is plan to fail. And I went through and read this plan, and I actually got excited. And I did get the survey about this plan, and I did take the survey. And we moved up here in 2011, and there was a master plan for Mountain Green, but that never came into fruition. So it's my understanding that this is not code, this is just a plan, it's research, but it's a way to move forward, a way to progress our community in the right direction. And I loved the entire trail system that connected me to my neighbors in Peterson that I don't know, but maybe I could know if I'm walking along the trail and I bump into them. So I liked that sense of community, that we connect together. And I loved having a gathering place, a central village gathering place. And what excites me the most is we're in charge. We get to decide how to develop it and how it looks. And that was mentioned over and over in the plan. Like, this is a unique opportunity. We do not have an old downtown Main Street. We have nothing, so we can decide how it goes. So I appreciate the work that's been put into this to actually create something, to create a plan, create a vision. But you're right, there's changes that need to be made, voices that need to be heard. So I think we can improve it as it moves forward. So thank you.
Tina Kelly, Mountain Green. I've already spoken to this in a previous iteration, so I just did have a few things, and I'll try to keep it brief. I don't have any issues with the planning portion of this, but there are a few items like in sentences that say, while a quarter-acre lots are allowed, the majority of lots are intended to be half-acre or larger to maintain a rural mountain town feel. Sentences like that, they tend to get overlooked when the implementation process comes forward. They're a little generic, and I think if you want a certain zone, you need to emphasize that that's the zone that you want. Then in the transportation section, it say that it would like to see a linkage to Peterson in that new interchange, and I'm on a subcommittee that's doing the environmental study for the interchange, and UDOT has completely decided not to look at that, going that way. If that's something that the county wants them to do, the county needs to come forward and tell them that that's what you want the future to do. At least if you want it to be stubbed in and be a future land use. If that's what the county wants, then you need to say that. If that's not what you want, then don't worry about it. That was the one thing I did see in the transportation issue, or the transportation section. Other than that, I understand that this is a planning document, but it's been a long time in the process. It was started in 2020, and there wasn't a lot of public input able to be done. So they did send out a survey to Peterson and Mountain Green, and people had an opportunity to respond. But I agree that that wasn't a big opportunity for people. They didn't understand that was going to be their only opportunity. So I would love to see more if there were a meeting in the Mountain Green area or the Peterson area to get more comment. I understand that people get tired of that as well, but I think that would be a good thing. Thank you.
Lilia Allen, Mountain Green. I wanted to reiterate what Tina said. The survey was very big, and I don't know what the right word is, maybe leading and hard to differentiate how people really thought. I wanted to add a few thoughts. As I talk to people in our area, we hate Rome, and I hear the word, it's a tragedy that that's there and it's ugly. Those are the terms I've heard a lot. So at some point we worried that we didn't have enough rooftops, and with everything that is slated and projected, we have a lot of rooftops there in Mountain Green now. I think people wanted more rooftops because we wanted a grocery store, and that's coming to fruition now. And with endless taxes, and with the massive amount of taxes we can expect from Wasatch Peaks, that's not as big a concern anymore. So I know there's a lot slated, and I want to suggest to be careful in that aspect, and in the view that I've heard a lot from commission mostly that we still need more rooftops and we still need more tax space, and I think that's a misnomer at this point now. Our Mountain Green residents are very fit, and we exercise a lot, and that's why people moved here, to be close to the ski mountain, to be close to cycling and hiking. And I would hope that we keep that in mind, that's one of the great treasures of our area. It seems that after watching these plans for a few years now, that sometimes there's a vision and some of it falls short, and our decisions become based on, in the past, incentivizing and trying to get those, the rooftops, the commercial base, the tax revenue. And I think that we need to come to a place where we're not as needy and making decisions based on need, and keep our gem of our place, our outdoor look, more in mind. That's all. Thank you.
Frank Bowman. I'm a resident of Peterson, and just overall, I got this a couple days ago and I have had a chance to review it. And I think it's probably the best area plan / general plan I've seen to date since the 2000s. They're aspirational, of course, and you can look at them and look at future densities. Well, right now in Peterson, you really can't have a lot you can't have an R120 lot per se, because you have to have a replacement septic system. So your minimum lot right now is about 27, 28 acres to fit a house on the scale people build anymore. What really shocked me about this plan, to be honest with you, was the average home price of $900,000 versus the state of $502,000. And it's been a concern of mine for a long, long time, affordable housing and our children being able to live here. And we got to look to the future. I think this plan does. I think it's overall a very good plan. I do have one little nitpicking thing on it. In the boundaries of Peterson, it describes Peterson as from basically the mouth of the canyon to Dalton Creek, west of the I-84 interchange. That's actually incorrect. Peterson on the west side of the river is located from the mouth of the canyon to Dalton Creek. But there's also a Peterson on the east side of the river. I know that because I live there and have pretty much my whole life. Historically, Peterson was defined on the west side from the mouth of the canyon to Dalton Creek, and on the east side, it was historically defined from Dead Man's Gulch to Peterson Point, which is the ridge that separates me from Enterprise. It has been redefined since then to where Peterson, under the county documents and approvals, on the east side of the river is actually Bowman Ranch's north boundary line to the Bowman Ranch south boundary line, and then extending from Old Highway 1/2 mile east. And so the way this is written up is I'm not in Peterson, but they're looking at my property, my family's property, because there's a road that connects us, when in fact I actually live in Peterson. it ought to be properly reflected. Went through a huge political fight over that about 15 years, so thank you.
My name's Dave Croft. I live in Peterson, and looking over this plan, there was a couple of things that I had a bit of an issue with. One of them, which was kind of a minor deal, had to do with the water company boundaries, and it's got Peterson Pipeline's boundary, but I've got we own 2 homes that we are served by Peterson Pipeline, but we're not reflected inside of the boundary. So I don't know if that's too important or not, but it's just thought I'd mention that the boundary on that is off a little bit. The other thing I wanted to speak about was you've got, like on page 59, the kind of a map of the existing roads and proposed roads. And I see you've got a proposed road going up Peterson Creek. And I'm not too excited about that. That road would probably go right through our property. And I'm not sure what size road you're looking at, but there's not a lot of room there between the creek and our homes. So I don't know if that could be a problem, but I think I hate to see it put on the map, because then people think that it needs to come about. And I'm not in favor of that at all.
Hi, Julie Croft. I'm from Peterson. I didn't know too much. I knew you were like doing some things, but it would have been nice to know that people could come and hear what's going on, so it's not a big surprise about having a road like going up in front. Well, we have a road, but it would probably, I'm sure, have to be larger. But I did. Okay. I did have a question about, I've noticed that you have put on a time, let's see, so I've got the wrong page here, but a time slot of certain things you want to have done in these steps within 1 year, and update the draft and Morgan County plan. You want to do PUDs and have them done, create an ordinance for short-term rentals, etc., and then fund a detailed study for infrastructure in Mountain Green and Peterson that covers, sounds like you're looking at combining existing water companies and recommended for future provisions of culinary water. And I noticed I read in there where the water companies, it would save money because as we're growing, I'm sure that if you combine Mountain Green and Peterson, you're going to have a lot of help in paying for these, which if I lived in Mountain Green, I don't know that I'd want to pay to upgrade Peterson, vice versa, on their water systems. But, and then it mentions sewer systems, which it sounds like this it is looking at creating a lot of growth. One question I would have is what is the, I was trying to figure out, but I don't have the Mountain Green plan. How many homes would this be looking at? Like if, and it's like 1 to 5 years here, but approximately when you were looking at this, whoever is on this committee that didn't know was happening exactly, but how many homes will be possible approximately? I'm sure you wouldn't know for sure, but I think that would be interesting for the people in Peterson to know how many homes you're looking at within a few years, because that homes don't usually pay their own way. You're looking at schools and wider roads. Also, the road, I know the road in Peterson, when you get down the road, the road that I could see, I'm not sure, it's kind of off in a little different spot on the map. It's unclear, like the one by our house, if it's over across the creek or how someone designed that. But that would be nice to know exactly where, if that's exactly where that was planned. But I know though the old town sites in Peterson were put in, I mean, I believe they're approximately 30-foot old time roads. So what kind of development are you having up here? Are you going to have to condemn people's houses down the road, like down from us is Whittier's, Debbie knows. Anyways, I don't know if there's wider roads through the Peterson Town Center, so how much development is gonna go up here, how wide will these roads have to be? I also was curious about, you've got a nice hiking trail all along Weaver Basin, as long as I've lived there, which is 100 years, almost. Not really, but it's looking like it. Anyway, I'm curious, has anyone approached Weaver Basin? They have always kept their place locked. If someone goes in to fish, they come and slap up a sign. And to have a big, long walking trail in Weaver Basin, I think before these things are planned, I don't know, maybe you have approached them, but if that's not a feasible thing, why would you do it? And I know in front of our house, you've got a walking trail that goes up, and it goes up and just stops. I believe at Whittier's Gate is what it looks like. I'm not sure, but I'm curious. And as far as Peterson Creek above our house goes dry in the summer, it's all used for irrigation, and usually it's a dry creek. But I'm curious why it stops there, and you're not recommending it go around and do something instead of just going up and stopping. And I disagree with putting that there. And I think before you do walking paths on like Weaver Basin, and maybe you've approached them. But anyway, that was a concern, whether that is something that they would allow to have on their property. And the bridge that's down from our home, where I don't know if this exactly is where you're planning this new road, I couldn't quite tell. It, I believe, is a substandard bridge on Peterson Creek, and it gets plugged up quite often. Are we looking at upgrading a bridge in these roads in order to accommodate the growth that's up behind our house? And actually, our property, we own 15 acres. I'm sure we could develop and make millions probably, but do we want to? No. Not unless we have to. But anyway, I'm just curious about what the big picture is, how many homes you're looking at when you did this study that would be probable. And I know that, I believe, I'm not sure, did you just pass an ordinance that allows people on a lot to have a smaller home? I'm not sure what you call that. I don't know if that has been adopted. So right there we have quite a few new homes that could be built to accommodate whatever they're accommodating. Anyway, the smaller than your residence. I'm not sure what you call that. In fact, I'd be curious to know if you have passed that. But anyway, so, and also I remember in the Peterson plan, no one wanted lots less than quarter acre. They wanted to maintain their rural atmosphere. I don't see this plan as doing that. And I am concerned that I believe there's a lot of people who know nothing about this. And this is a pretty big document, and well, we tried to print it up. We appreciate that Debbie did text us about it a couple of days ago. But I talked to a couple people, they knew nothing about it. So I would recommend, and I think it would be nice for the people in Peterson and Mountain Green, we're going to become kind of one, it looks like, to have some meetings and let everybody see exactly. It looks like the Whittiers have a plan. I'd be interested in seeing what they plan. And anyway, thank you for listening.
Okay, I'm Randy Sessions. Usually I stay home, and when she comes home, I pause the television for a half hour and give her time to vent, and then I start it back up. So there won't be venting tonight. Just kind of as the comment was made, we need to plan or nothing happens. And I think that's a positive thing. You know, 20 years ago when we did the Peterson area plan before, some of those folks aren't here anymore. They're permanently planted in the Peterson Cemetery. And chances are some of us that are here speaking tonight in the next 20 years, that's where we'll be planted too. We need to kind of be worrying about the next generation. It was commented that we do have a subdivision. I've told my children that will be the last piece of property they ever sell. But through the years, since we've subdivided, I don't know how many people have come to us and said, we'd sure like to have our kids live in Peterson. Will you sell us one of those lots? And we said, nope. And so tonight I'm standing here, I asked my grandson, how many kids are in the graduating class this year? And he says, about 250 to 300. He says, there's a ton of them. And I says, well, if you weighed them all, it'd probably be a ton, but I don't know about that. But the thing is Devin Miller wouldn't live here with his wife, who was raised here in Morgan. Dustin Little wouldn't live here with his wife in Morgan if somebody didn't provide housing for him. Steve's been here too. There's housing. So who's providing the housing for those 250 kids? I've often said, if they'd marry each other, we'd only need 125 houses. And Steve, no offense, but up in Porterville, those Carters and Porters for years, they did that, didn't they? You know, so, and anyway, the thing is we kind of got to be thinking about the next generation, and we need to have a plan. Because in my view, what's coming down is coming from the state, and it's going to get bigger from the state. We just had a Peterson pipeline meeting. The federal government's requiring Peterson Pipeline to go in and identify if there's any lead pipes in the system. That's coming from the feds. What's happening on the state level is they're getting more involved in the little water systems. They're putting demands on the water systems. And then you have the Morgan Weber Health that's putting demands on the sewer systems and saying you can't do this, you can't do that. And then on top of that, we have the legislature that says you need low-income housing. And Brent pointed out the value of the house is the average $900,000. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. And the economy dipped down, but it didn't dip here. Nobody's house has gone lower in value. So there is no affordable housing for those children of ours. So we need to be advocates for them. But how are you going to do that? Well, we need to have smaller lots. We need to have, I hate to say it, rises because of demands that are happening around us that we have no control over. Just so you folks from Mountain Green know, we provide your rural atmosphere. We live across the river there, and we've farmed there for 40 plus years. We've provided that rural atmosphere, but I'm getting a double message, because the message is coming now that I hear is we want your water to go to the Great Salt Lake to save it. So my rural atmosphere that I'm providing you for free might go away because they'll probably compensate me for the water, but my return on my investment on my property won't be very good. So we need to step up and have a plan that we can say, state, back off, here we are, this is what we're doing, give us time to make it happen and be out there in the front of it instead of behind. We can't, if you're standing and looking at the back the way things were 20 years ago, you're run over. And I'm probably the most run over guy in the world because my flip phone tells me that. But I can see into the future, and we're going to change. You can't stop the change short of buying that piece of ground next to you. We have 1.5 miles of common fence with Wasatch Peaks. And I've said many times as people say, well, you're going to get rich of that. And my response is, just because you stood next to the pretty girl in the school pictures don't mean you took her to the prom. Wasatch Peaks is another beast. people say, well, you're included in them. No, we can't be included because the development agreement Morgan County has, we're not part of Wasatch Peaks. It affects us. My water rights come through there. We've had numerous discussions about accessing the water rights and doing stuff like that. But the other thing is, as a just kind of inclusion, we need to be progressive. This is a plan. You got to remember, it started in COVID, and a lot of stuff didn't happen in COVID like it should have. Yeah, there were surveys sent out, but sometimes we forget what those kind of things. And as far as participating in it, not everybody's going to be happy with what happens in the future, but it's going to happen. And my suggestion is you suggest moving forward with this plan. And we still don't understand the impacts Wasatch Peak's going to have. When you have as many employees as they're going to require, those folks are going to want to live as close to where they work as they can. There was a comment about Airbnbs. We kind of did an inventory, Debbie and I, that we know of 3 that we're aware of just in Peterson. And there, anyway, and we don't know if there's others out there. So, yeah, we're in transitions, but we need to have a plan where we're headed, or you don't go anywhere. Thank you.
I'm Gary Patterson. I'm a resident of Peterson, fairly new one. My intent tonight was to come and be a part of this meeting. I appreciate the commission for having the meeting. I appreciate technology that allows it to be on YouTube so that when I can't be here, I can at least watch it and know what's going on. In what Madam Chairman said about 3 minutes, I've set my timer to 3 minutes. Hopefully I can get out my point in 3 minutes and then get out of here. However, I did want my voice to be heard tonight. I do echo the sentiments that have been shared this evening in regards to this plan. I have not heard anybody say that they found out any sooner than me. I found out 20 minutes before this meeting started. Partially, my wife and I are very busy, and sometimes she gets information that I don't. We don't share back and forth. However, as Mr. Blaine Murray stated earlier, he was for the possibility of having more public meeting, more public comment. There were some previous issues about 3 or 4 months ago that I felt were important, that more public involvement, more information needed to be given to the public. And I recommended or suggested to the people that maybe we should utilize the auditorium at the high school. It's a big enough facility. It doesn't cost anything, as far as I know, to have more public opinion on this. I would also agree with Mr. Sessions in regards to we need to have a plan. It's 100 documents. I'm a slow reader. I haven't read any of it. I'm looking at it on my phone. I think that it needs to be, more time needs to be given to it for consideration for the public. I'm not sure, other than Madam Sessions there, that she knows that I'm co-owner of Heinz Country Store. A lot of these people in the audience this evening patronize my store. However, there's a lot of people. I tried to see in the document how many homes there are. It said 873 people live in Morgan or in Peterson. There's maybe 50 people here. Mr. Sessions stated that 20 years from now, most of those 873 will be in the ground. Okay, I might be one of them, but I might not be. I have been coming to this valley for the last 36 years of my marriage annually, and have enjoyed. I came from Oregon. I'm sorry, but I came from Oregon. It's beautiful, it's green, it's lovely. It's messed up right now, but nonetheless, it is a very beautiful place. and I came here, and this is a very beautiful place, the rural setting, as Mr. Sessions stated. He provided that. I married into the Whittier family. They provided that. My 3 minutes is up. I just would like everyone to know that I think more public opinion needs to come forth before anything is even voted on, passed, considered, second motion, whatever the political language is. I think a lot more needs to go. And I've also heard that through some of this, there's some inconsistencies because it was done, I believe, during COVID 2020. That's just 3 years ago, and things have changed and brought up that I'm not part of this, or it doesn't include this. I actually am, I'm not. So I would hope that the commission would take that into consideration, and I would like to express I do appreciate the opportunity that the public has to voice their opinion. I wish there was interaction, but then we'd never go home. So with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
My name's Michael Allen, and I live in Peterson, have done for 70 years. I inherited some property from my grandfather, and now Randy Sessions was talking about some young children that wanted to buy some property or building lot. Well, I've got about 5 of them that are interested. There's nothing for sale. I've got 5 acres across from Weber Basin Canal with a bridge, and they lock it continuously. And we've talked to the sheriff about it and tried to get access. There's no parks in Peterson. When I was a kid, and I still allow the neighbors to go up there and sleigh ride, but they've got to hop the fence with Weber Basin Canal, and I think Weber Basin Canal is an absolutely lousy neighbor. I'd like to, well, in fact, I'm going to give the 5 acres to my children to divide it up, but right now it's zoned 1 acre parcels, I believe, and it's just not divisible. I think there could be 4 or 5 lovely homes up there, and I know they're anxious to build there, but there's not availability. They're zoned out of it. So, and I'm not quite certain how to even address the board about how to get it rezoned. I don't know if that can even be possible. I've turned it over to them because I don't have the temperament for it. Anyway, maybe smaller lots, at least on my 5 acres. I'd like to make it so I could divide it amongst the children, and that's about all I've got to say. Thank you.
Brief. My name is Taylor Smith. I live here in Morgan City. I was raised in Mountain Green, and I had short notice, and just fortunately I live 3 blocks away, so I was able to walk over real quick. So I agree that planning is important, and I think that there are a lot of factors that need to be weighed here. My concern is with this document, 150 pages plus an additional 100 plus pages of appendices. It's not very digestible to the average resident. And looking through it, I mean, it's very pretty, and I'm sure whoever put it together, we paid them the $120,000, whatever that was. They wanted to make sure that we felt like we got our money's worth. But I think that it would be more useful if there was a little less trim and a little less sales marketing technique applied, and just a little bit more substance to it. And I think that if we could just have an open dialogue, as has been suggested. I think a little more public involvement in this. I don't know who put this all together, and I'm sure they were competent, but they're not internal. I think that this is our county, this is our home. I think that the people that are best equipped to understand what we need and want in this community is this community. We shouldn't be outsourcing it to engineers. We shouldn't be outsourcing it to other people. That's just my 2 cents, and I, again, would encourage us to not take any next steps until these things are addressed. Thank you.
Kenna Forsher, and I live in Peterson. I'm the next generation you're all talking about. So I felt it was kind of important that I come up here and give you a little bit of what I've seen. So I am the daughter of DeLynn Whittier Patterson. Gary is my father. I've had the pleasure of working at Heinz for quite some time, well, since they owned it, just about. I've lived here for about 6 years, but I came annually every year my whole life. And I'm so grateful that my grandparents had somewhere like Peterson to have me come. Because I've seen growth and what it can do to places that are special. And Peterson is special. No offense to Mountain Green. Your values are a little different than what I have seen continually in Peterson. And I'm not saying that that's bad. I think we can take a page from their book and they can take a page from ours, and we can really find something that will work well for this area, because I am one of the generations that wants to be here but can't afford to be here. If it weren't for incredible landlords, I wouldn't be here. And I just feel like there's a lot of people like me who really love this place. And the plan that we have right now has been working, but it's not perfect. This plan also is not perfect. And in fact, I'd say it's far from, because I don't feel like it will offer the same longevity that the previous plan did. There is not enough time in anyone's schedule to read that plan. I, like my father, got it about 15 minutes before this was starting. I briefly, very briefly, went over the first few pages and got a little panicked, so I went a few pages deeper and then went, oh my gosh, I gotta go. I've never once been to a meeting before. I've watched them, but this one's important, and this information needs to be shared a lot better than it has been. As someone who is very active in the community, talking to people, I work at Browning. We talk at Browning. We talk at the store. People come in, they share their opinions. I'm very active on social medias for this specific area, and this was not shared at all. So it needs way more time, way more attention, and a lot of changes to even what you have right now, because this plan won't work to allow us to stay here with the feel that we need, and that is really unfortunate. So I would just hope that you would take the time and the effort as a community to be a part of the community and have their feedback actually matter. Make them feel involved, and they will get involved. I've watched it with Heinz over and over and over again. The more we reached out and the more we offered, the more the people came. They care. These people care about this community. And if you're not going to care about it like they care about it, then you're going to lose a community really, really fast. Thanks.
Chris Lehman. I'm with everybody else. My wife texted me. I have not read the plan. I've not looked at it. Peterson. My father-in-law was Otto Pendleton. Built Pendleton's Country Store. Community has to be key in this. Moved here 2 years ago. My wife grew up here, born and raised. Happiest I've been in my life. I want to keep this. Not saying against growth, but it can't be expansive. It can be expansive, but it can't be explosive. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Any more comment? Okay, Doesn't appear to be any more. Can I have a motion to go to public hearing? I have a motion by Member Miller and a second by Member Little. All Aye. Any opposed? And just need to probably clarify something. There was never a committee that did this. The Planning Commission saw this for the first time at the very end of last year. And so this was just stage one of public input. There was never intended to be a decision made. There's going to be multiple public hearings at the Planning Commission level and at the County Commission level. So just to clear up that misunderstanding. It was a company that was contracted to write that, send out the surveys to the people to receive input. They took that input and came up with this plan. And so it's new to us too. We've had a chance to read it. It's on the county website that you can bring up and read it. And there'll be more meetings. They'll be noticed on the state public meeting notice and on the county website. We can teach you how to subscribe to the state public meeting notice site, that you get an email whenever there's an agenda posted and what that agenda is, that you can subscribe, and so that's how you can stay in the loop. It's very difficult to get out the information to everyone. I mean, it's noticed in the paper. I mean, we're at a loss, but this was just the first step, so don't panic. It's going to be a process to get it through, but we will have, again, many more meetings. And the intent is not to combine Peterson and Mountain Green. The company that was hired to do this was tasked with the report of doing Mountain Green and Peterson area plan. And so they did it, and they kind of put them side by side, but the intent is not to combine those two communities. Anything else?
Since we
Garrett?
have so many here, I do think it would be appropriate to go through how to receive notifications, and then you can share this YouTube video, and I think it you know, we've made it this far. You know, a few more minutes. You can leave if you need to, but I think a few more minutes wouldn't hurt to show it on the screens. And so it looks like Jeremy's pulled up the Utah Public Notice website, and if you just type in Utah Public Notice website, it'll come up. And yeah, and so you'll click on that. Jeremy, can you show them how they can sign up for the email? So go back to the, yeah.
So you'll notice that you see notices from all over the state. Then you can filter by your zip code. That would be the first step. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I may need some clarification on this myself, but you can sign up, and you can, with an email account, you'll be able to filter by if you want to see notices for the school district.
If you go down to the very bottom of the
That up.
page,
Thank you.
okay, hit county,
Uh-huh.
and then hit Morgan over here, the entity. And the public body, you pick which one. You can go down, you can do the planning commission, keep going.
It'd be this one right here,
Yeah,
and that's the
you
meeting
click
you're
on
sitting
it.
in tonight. And you'd be noticed for this meeting by clicking this.
You're also noticed when an agenda is posted, documents are posted, and we're going to go to I think we should show the county website as well. But anytime there's a posting, you'll get a notification so that you can see what is going on. If you look at the agenda, you may
Click on
not
it like
care.
agenda. Click on one
Yeah,
of
you may
those.
not care what's there, and so you don't go. But if there's something that sparks your interest, and for public meeting or legislative actions like we just had, that's posted 10 days in advance, at least 10 days in advance by Utah law. And so, you know, it's not a 10-minute notice like, hey, the meeting's just starting. You should have 10 days to be able to see what's coming up. Administrative items,
Yeah, keep going down
they
to
only have
subscribe.
to be noticed 24 hours in advance, but the packet is sent out, Josh, a week before. Is that correct? Or Friday before, maybe. it's usually not 24 hours. We try to give more than what's required by law.
The packet is typically sent out a week before, the Thursday prior to the next Thursday's meeting. Sometimes it goes out on Friday. Those meetings are noticed 10 days even before that. And if there's an item like this, it would be posted to our website the moment we send notifications out. We try to give as much notice as possible. And as far as the general plan and the area plans go, more public input is always good. Because it is your community's plan for the future.
All right, so this is how you sign up. Can we go to the county website now? It looks like you've already got the tab open.
Me too.
So if you go to the county website, you can go to departments at the top of the page, and if you go down to planning and development and click that button, and then you scroll down, the upper left icon when you get down there, it says planning commission meetings. So if, Jeremy's going to click that, and what pulls up are all the meetings for the year. And if it has an underline, that means that it's available as a link. So today, of course, we don't have minutes because those won't even be approved. We don't have the last meeting minutes either because they'll be approved tonight. Well, maybe, but I mean, that's the idea. And once they're approved, they can be posted. But you can see that the packet has been there for a week, and if you click on the packet, that's what provides the link to all the information for all of the administrative items today and the legislative items. And, to get to the document that we've been looking at, you have to go to the legislative item, and then there's actually an embedded link to pull up the entire packet. So that's how you can access on our website. And then if you go to YouTube, it looks like you also have that page open, Jeremy.
It's the link here. I was just going to demonstrate it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
And that's the PDF document itself, so you can store that where you like.
Right. So that's accessed right from the county website. On YouTube, if you type Morgan County, Utah, you'll see we have quite a few subscribers. And so every time we go live, you'll get a notification. I don't know how many we have, but we get a few views of each of our meetings. Right now, it says we're live, and so there's 7 watching remotely. All of these are available there, and so I think this was an important meeting, and you can, go to YouTube. You can share the link. People can hear the comments that were already shared.
I think this was an important meeting, and you
Nothing like hearing yourself talk. So anyway,
or you can press the share button here. It's easier on a phone.
And then you can share on social media, however you share it. But these YouTube videos, they stay there. They're not taken down, and so you can watch all the public meetings. And then let's go back to the county website. And if you go back to, well, let's do the commission. If you go to government and then just do the county commission. So at the end of the day, so there's land use authorities for certain things. If it's a smaller project, then the planning commission can be the land use authority that'll have the final decision. But you heard tonight that a lot of times they're making recommendations to the county commission. And the county commission, they're the elected body that has to make a lot of the tough calls, right? With development growth, how is that going to happen? So if you scroll down, it says meet your commissioners, kind of describes what they do, but you'll be able to see that it has their contact information. And I know that it was talked about that, we wish that there was more interaction, but to make meetings be able to move forward and, to avoid maybe hostile discussions, sometimes it's better to have those in a less charged environment, depending on the issue. And so you can send your thoughts to, I would email the county commission and then even have a follow-up call if you have the time to do that. But giving your specific feedback, I think, is very helpful, because they do appreciate the input. A lot of times people won't come out to the meetings. We have very few, and so there's not as much feedback. For administrative items, they really can't take feedback because if our code says you have to pass it, they have to pass it. There was also a comment about, working with the state, and under the Utah Constitution, and we don't need to pull that up, but just for your reference, my recollection is it's Article 12. It talks about how the counties are political subdivisions of the state. And so if the state is forcing us to do more housing, and they've actually taken away the county's ability with a recent Senate Bill 274, where the county now has to approve things at a rate that the state wants to see happen, so there's shorter deadlines, different requirements. The counties are bound by those requirements. And so as a county, yes, we want to run it the way that we want to, but there are things that are somewhat out of our control based on our Constitution because people delegate to the state first, and then the state delegates to the county. And that puts us in a position of less power when we're working within their mandates. So, reach out to your state legislators as well. When you see certain things being mandated, I think that that's always a really important thing to do. As a county, we elected officials, we swear to uphold the Constitution. And so if there's a state mandate that goes against the Constitution as is, I think there is some argument that we can refuse to follow those types of mandates, at least until the courts, sort it out. But by and large, if what the legislature is doing, if it falls in line with the Constitution, then it's a mandate to the counties to follow that. I remember hearing this quite a few years ago, and it was a statement that says that, and they were talking about the federal Constitution, not the Utah Constitution, but they said the Constitution doesn't prevent us from being stupid. A lot of laws are passed, and just because they're stupid doesn't mean they're unconstitutional. But if there's less involvement and feedback, I think that we can get stuck with some pretty lousy laws. And so just kind of keep that in mind. But I think that's all I had, but mainly getting the word out. And I think the feedback is to have many more meetings and larger forums and ability to maybe have the dialogue so that it's not a public meeting where you talk and we listen and then we say stuff, but you can't respond. I think that there's a lot of options where the county can take feedback and have those dialogues in an open manner, transparent manner.
Okay, moving on.
Sorry,
That's
and
fine.
I don't know if maybe this is more of an internal, but I think a summary document to hit some high points may be helpful as well, and then it could be linked to certain pages. And anyway, I'll bring that up with the commission, and we'll kind of decide who maybe prepares that document.
Thank you.
Josh, was there a quicker link to find these area plans instead of going into the packet? Is it like
On the county website.
it's on the county website? Okay,
On maybe just down at the bottom, main
Just
page.
right there. Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. On to business staff questions. Josh, do you have any business? Do you have any questions for staff? Okay. Minutes from our last meeting. Got all your corrections in? We'll have a motion.
There's no mistakes made, as you've already seen.
You're perfect, yep. I'll have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Little to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
A motion to adjourn. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.